Hi, today we're going to do 4.9 and we're talking about this thing called functions. And there are a couple things about functions. One is to think of it conceptually kind of like a machine, like a laundry, washer or dryer. So you put your laundry in and then the machine does something to it, it washes it. So another thing to think about is how the notation looks. So this, I would say f of x, that's how I would say that, equals, I'm looking at problem number 2, negative 2x minus 3, okay? So this is my machine, the f of x, and the x is the laundry that I'm putting into the washing machine. So what's inside this parentheses tells us what's going into that machine. So what is this machine doing? Instead of washing clothes, it's taking whatever you put into it and it's going to multiply it by negative 2 and then subtract 3. So whatever you put in the machine will get multiplied by negative 2 and then that answer will subtract 3. So what they want us to do in this question, they've got 4 parts. So A says to find f of 5. So they put the 5 in the parentheses to say that they want us to insert the 5 everywhere we see an x. And my recommendation, my very strong recommendation, is that you first write the x as an open set of parentheses so that you see where the 5 goes. This will keep everything straight when you end up down the road doing negatives and squaring things and fractions and stuff like that. Replace your x with an empty set of parentheses. So what is it we're inserting in the parentheses on this question? We're inserting a 5. So we put the 5 in there. You could literally type this into your calculator just the way it is, negative 2 parentheses 5 parentheses minus 3, and get an answer. Or you could do it by hand. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Minus 3 gives me negative 13. So when I put a 5 into this machine, what spits out is a negative 13. So let's look at B. B says find f of negative 8. So f of negative 8. So in other words, I'm putting a negative 8 into this function. So where would it go? It would go where the x was. So I'm going to do an open parentheses, write everything else, insert my negative 8 in there. And you see how the parentheses help keep this very easy to understand. So I have a negative 2 times negative 8, which is positive 16, minus 3 gives me 13. So that would be my answer for that one. Okay, C, they give me f of 0, which means I'm going to rewrite my function with an empty parenthesis, put a 0 in there. Negative 2 times 0 is 0, minus 3 is negative 3. So that would be my answer for part C. And then D is everybody's favorite fraction. So I have 1/7. So I'm going to have a negative 2, empty parenthesis, minus 3. I'm going to put my 1/7 in here. And you can easily do that on your calculator. Negative 2 times 1/7 would be negative 2/7. Minus 3 would be negative 23/7, which would be very easy for your calculator to do if you're worried about those fractions. Okay, so that's how functions work. And so the next several questions are actually quicker because they don't have A, B, C, D. Question 1 is similar to question 2, so I think you could handle that. Number 3, let's look at number 3. So 3, I have, in this case, they're using an r, but that doesn't matter. They're just calling the function r instead of f. R of x equals 4 over x minus 8, and they want us to find r of 9. So I'm going to rewrite my equation with an empty set of parentheses for the x. I'm going to put my 9 in there. 9 minus 8 is 1. 4 over 1 is 4, and that would be my answer. Again, you could put all or part of that problem into the calculator if you need help with that. Okay, let's look at problem 4. 4, I have the square root of x squared plus 25. And this is h of x for this question, which again doesn't matter what letter they choose. They want us to find h of 0. So I'm going to rewrite this, replacing the x with an empty set of parentheses, insert my 0. You could type this into your calculator if you wanted. 0 squared is 0. 0 plus 25 is 25. Square root of 25 is 5. Notice I don't need the plus or minus 5 because they had written the square root as only the positive. They did not put a negative there, so I don't need to account for that other piece. Okay, so what I want to do is show you problem number 5 because they add something different in the second half of 5. So 5 says f of x equals 18x plus 12. F of x equals, sorry, 18x plus 12. I wasn't sure I had started my video. So anyways, in the first part, they want me to find f of 5. So this part is pretty easy. We're practiced on this now. So I've got 5 goes in there. 5 times 80 is 90 plus 12 will give me 102. So that's my answer for that. But the second part, they say find x when f of x equals 1. So this is different. They're asking something different. They're not asking us to find f of x, which is what we've been doing. They're asking us to find x. In other words, they're saying what went in there for x in order for f of x, this whole value, to be 1. So we're going to replace the f of x with a 1 equals 18x plus 12, and then solve this for x. So minus 12 minus 12, I get minus 11 equals 18x, divide by 18, x equals negative 11 over 18. So the first part of the problem, they wanted us to find f of x when x was 5, so we put a 5 in for x to tell them what this answer would be. The second problem was backwards. They wanted us to find x when f of x was 1, so we replaced f of x with a 1 and then solved that for x. So you'll notice that on question 6, they do the same thing, but it's a little bit trickier because they start off with a quadratic equation. So let's talk about that. Number 6, I've got x squared plus 8x plus 5. F of x equals x squared plus 8x plus 5. And the first half is easy. They want us to find f of 5. So I'm going to put a 5 in wherever the x's were. So I get 25 plus 40 plus 5, which is 65 plus 5, which is 70. So that's the answer to the first part. But the second part says, just like in the previous problem, find x when f of x equals 14. Okay, so now I'm going to replace the f of x with the 14, and I have to solve this problem. So what's wrong with that is that now we have to do what we learned a while back with quadratics. First of all, this side has to be 0. 5 minus 14 is minus 9. A couple ways of doing this, okay? Some of you got pretty good at factoring. I'm looking for factors of 9, so 1 and 9. Signs are different, so my options are that or that. Other factors of 9 would be 3 and 3, but that doesn't work because I can't put them together to get an 8. Negative 1 plus 9 equals positive 8, which is what I have. So this must be a minus 1, a plus 9, an x, and an x. And then my last step would be to use the zero product property and set each one, x minus 1 equals 0, x plus 9 equals 0, So add 1, x equals 1, or x equals -9. How would I write that answer? I would do 1, -9 is my answer. For those of you who really struggle with this factoring piece right here, what could you do instead? You could use the quadratic formula, right? Oops. So you could do a is 1, comes from this, b is 8, c is -9, put it into -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and you'll get your two answers as well. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to do it. We really don't spend enough time factoring for most of you to feel comfortable with this, and so that's normal if you're struggling with that, but the quadratic formula will work for all of those. So if you look at question 10, it's the same type of thing as this. They said if f of x equals x squared minus 6x minus 9, find the input values that make the function 0. So what you're going to do with that question is you're just going to set it equal to 0. So you're going to write 0 equals x squared minus 6x minus 9. I would recommend either factoring or quadratic formula. A is 1, B is -6, C is -9 to get your two answers, okay? And then 8, 8 is actually much easier. They just want you to put the number in. So they give you a function, h of t. In the first part, they want you to find h of 0. So you're going to put a 0 in for t. And the second part, they want you to find h of 3. So you're going to put a 3 in for t. So I think you can handle that one pretty well. It's not nearly as bad as 7 and 6. Okay? Good luck. Talk to you later.